stage. A roller skating thing. Yes! Back to the video. Before we officially jump into this video, I just wanted to say a huge thank you to you guys for helping support the channel since I posted the last video. I've got nearly 100 views on that video in the past couple of days, and I was not expecting this level of support. I can't thank you all enough, and it's really made me excited to keep making these videos because you obviously enjoy them so much. So thank you so much for sticking around. Now on to the next film. This week I looked at the second film in the A24 Marathon, which was Ginger and Rosa. If you don't know what A24 is or what this marathon is about, go check out my first video because I kind of go into depth of what A24 is and what I'm going to be doing in this series of videos. But the quick version is I am watching every single film produced, directed, no, that's not it. I'm watching every single film created, produced, or distributed by the A24 Film Company, and just sharing my thoughts on them and making some little videos on them. Well, without further ado, I'm gonna jump straight into this next film. But first, just a big spoiler warning. I'm going to be talking about some of the big plot points in this and like plot twists and things like that. So if you're interested in watching this movie, just pause here and come back and watch it after you've finished it. So Ginger and Rosa is written and directed by Sally Potter and distributed by A24 in the United States in 2013 following its initial release in late 2012. This film is filled with extremely talented actors, including Elle Fanning and Alice Elgert playing the titular Ginger and Rosa, as well as a supporting cast consisting of Alessandro Nivola, Christina Hendricks, Timothy Spall, Oliver Platt, Jodie May, and Annette Bening. This coming-of-age story follows two friends who have been joined at the hip since birth, and it explores the highs and lows of growing up in 1960s London. But along with the challenges of adolescence and finding out who you are in the world, there are added threats including the Cuban Missile Crisis, and as they develop their own ideas and opinions, Rosa falls for Ginger's free-thinking father, and their once solid friendship begins to dissolve. I have to say, this is a beautiful film. A lot of the reviews that I read after watching this were kind of mixed, and they mostly said that it kind of fell flat, but I completely disagree. This is exactly the kind of film we need right now because it looks into young people going out and making a difference. And even though it's set in the 1960s, a lot of the ideas brought up in this film can be translated to today. As someone watching who is currently going through this, like I just turned 19 last week, it was incredibly powerful because it can sometimes feel like we're stuck in the middle, like we're old enough to go out and do our own thing, but then we're still young enough that our parents have some control over us. And I think that this film captures this idea perfectly. I can kind of agree with some of the negative reviews, like there is some cringy and cliche dialogue, but that kind of adds to the charm, so I'm not really bothered by it. Also, another thing that I found a little bit iffy was that this film is called Ginger and Rosa, but the story is through the eyes of Ginger, but only about like a third of the film are Ginger and Rosa together. Although despite this, Elle and Alice have such great chemistry and they really do sell this strong relationship that these two characters have. The narrative of this film is just so beautiful and it's extremely thought out. Sally Potter does a lot of these politically focused films, but this is by far her most successful one out of all of her work, and for good reason too. A lot of the events that occur in this film are drawing from experiences that Potter had growing up at this time. And Ginger kind of acts as a stand-in for Potter as she experienced similar things that Potter relates to. I don't know how to describe it, but watching this film feels like reading a novel. I know it sounds weird, but if you've watched the film, you can kind of understand where I'm getting at. This film is so charming and it's filled with this youthful energy that a lot of previous films have tried and failed to capture. It kind of acts as two coming-of-age stories in one, with Ginger's story being very politically driven due to her paranoia about the Cuban Missile Crisis and the threat of bombings, whereas Rosa's is very emotionally driven as she's more concerned about the relationships that she has, including her negative attitude towards marriage and family due to her father walking out on her family at a young age. This film perfectly encapsulates the struggles of growing up and finding out who you are in the world, but there's the added pressure of bomb threats and your best friend's banging your dad. It's just so devastating to watch Ginger finally figure out where she belongs in the world, but it's just out of her reach. The first little montage that opens the film was really good. It was fast-paced, there was little dialogue, but it really showed the backstory of the characters. It's the perfect example of showing and not telling. The fast-paced back and forth dialogue between Ginger and Rosa really captured this adolescent nature, but this is contrasted with scenes that have no dialogue at all and they're only communicating through their body language and facial expressions. This montage expertly showed the lifelong friendship that these two characters have, but also began to plant the seeds of them going their separate ways. Ginger's depression and anxiety that slowly grows over the course of the film is so respectfully explored, as I suffer from these things myself, and it really pisses me off when films and TV shows use mental health as almost like a character trait. 13 Reasons Why, I'm looking at you. But this was so well done, and I applaud Potter for that. And Elle Fanning is 14 years old in this film, but she's playing a 17-year-old. What the fuck? I'll talk a bit about her performance a bit later on, but she is scary good. The scene when her mental health problems kind of come to fruition is a scene right at the end that I kind of call the confrontation scene. And this is where everyone's secrets are let out into the open, including Ginger being arrested for protesting against the bombings, Rosa and Roland's whole deal, and Rosa's pregnancy. This whole scene was just incredible. All the actors were excellent, and it just came to a nice little climax where everything was connected. It was so devastating to watch, but it felt so incredibly real, and I cannot praise Potter enough for that. Ginger and Rosa's characters were so well thought out, and they had so many layers on top of them, but this kind of left the adult characters a little bit one-sided, and they kind of acted as a role in Ginger and Rosa's life rather than a character. I'm not saying that these characters were bad, because they were really great, but there were just a couple of moments that felt a little bit stiff. But this could be because the film is through Ginger's eyes, so she obviously thinks of the adult characters different to what she thinks of Rosa. She's blinded by her dad's flaws. She sees her mum as an ungrateful housewife, but even Rosa seems a bit cruel and exclusive. I think Christina Hendricks' character, Natalie, who is Ginger's mum, was one of the ones that stuck out to me as being very cardboard, because her whole character is just getting on Ginger's back about not being home, which I guess is probably an accurate depiction of what Ginger sees, but it's still kind of one note, and she doesn't really have much depth other than she used to paint a lot before Ginger was born. Now, it's not only the story that is so beautiful about this film, but the cinematography and the filming style makes it so much better. With a mix of earthy reds and oranges as well as some greens, the colours within the scenes reflect the emotions, as this story is so focused on Ginger's emotions through the vibrant youthful energy to the minimal sparse depressions. The early scenes are full of giggles and shows Ginger and Rosa joined at the hip with arms around each other, and the cinematography used in these scenes creates a sense of a nostalgic, dreamlike memory. Now, today's fancy film word is diegetic and non-diegetic sound, which basically talks about the music in the scene and whether the characters can hear it or not. So diegetic sound is when a character can hear the sound in the scene, whether it be on screen or off screen, so like music coming from a phone or a radio. Whereas non-diegetic sound is when an editor puts the music over the top of the scene to evoke a certain emotion from the audience. So like, you know those rom-coms, it's like when they finally see each other, it's like the big sweeping oh my god moment. Now, with this in mind, the film uses diegetic sound for the entirety of the runtime, excluding the credits. So the only sound that is accompanying the scenes are the music coming from Ginger's record player or a radio in another room, which I found it really helped create an honest and intimate depiction of adolescence, with only the voiceovers being Ginger reading poems, which makes sense because Ginger would be reading it in her head. Now, speaking of Ginger, Elle Fanning is amazing in this. As I said before, she was 14 years old playing a 17-year-old, but she does it so convincingly. It's kind of creepy how good she is. This was kind of one of her first breakout roles and really freed her from being Dakota Fanning's little sister. I'd be very surprised if you hadn't heard of her because she's been involved in so many big productions lately, including Maleficent, The Great, which is a hilarious show and you all need to watch it, and All the Bright Places. But even in this film, which is 8 years before the movies I just said, she still shows how fucking talented she is. A while ago, I didn't really like her acting style, but I could never really put my finger on it, because she was always cast as like the sweet blonde girl next door type character, and it just really pissed me off. But it wasn't until I started watching some of her stuff outside of that genre that I really became to appreciate some of her stuff. In this film, she brings a kind of naivety and sensitivity to Ginger, as well as a youthful stubbornness, which I think really seals the authenticity of this character. Now, along with Elle, there are some incredible performances by the rest of the cast. Alice Englert and Elle Fanning had great chemistry, and it really made it convincing that these two characters were best friends forever. Alessandro Nivola, who plays Roland, or Ginger's dad, brings a sympathetic yet troubled nature to his character, so you obviously want to hate him for sleeping with his daughter's best friend, but he's also understanding and he realizes what he's done, and he's devastated by that. So, overall, this film was great. I know that there are some flaws, but I'm willing to overlook them because the story, the cinematography, and the acting was so well done. I really think you guys should give this film a go, especially those my age and in your teenage years. It really shows the power of young people and shows that we can make a difference and we can do something. I really hope you enjoyed this video. Let me know in the comments what you thought of this film if you have seen it. If you like what I'm doing, please subscribe, like, or leave some suggestions in the comments. Also remember, I'm streaming on Twitch every Wednesday afternoon and Friday afternoon, Australian Eastern Standard Time. And go follow me on Twitter and follow Rosie on Instagram, which is my little online shop, which I've got a couple things out at the moment, but there's some really cool things to come. Thank you so much for watching. I will get on to the next film and I will see you guys in the next video.